Ken is a volunteer, as you probably already know, at the Aviation Heritage Museum at Bullcreek. He put the newsletters on the desk today, on the tables today for you. He is the organiser of Volunteers Voice and one of the top guides. He finds himself in some unusual places and talking to unusual people from time to time. And recently he talked his way into cyber technology, and he's going to tell you all about it today.
Thanks, Brian. My apologies for the hassles with all this technology. There is something special about today. It's the 40th birthday since the start of the internet, so you can blame all this problems with communications with that thing. I didn't talk my way into going to the cyber factory. I was actually with a couple of guys, Lyle Bell and Alan Rye, and they're young fellows. Lyle is 92, and his claim to fame was he flew a mosquito underneath Sydney Harbour Bridge on VJ Day, and because it was VJ Day he didn't get in the strife. Alan Rye is a technician, and he paints stuff. There's what's his name gun underneath the Sydney Harbour Bridge. There's no record of it, but as I say, because it was Sydney VJ Day, he got let off. It's quite a funny story because the squadron, the CO decided to do a formation fly past across Sydney to celebrate VJ Day, and the rest of the squadron were quite pissed off because they all wanted to get up there as well. So when the four of them took off with the CO, Lyle with another four behind taxied out behind him. The CO never saw it. The CO went off that way to fly over Sydney, and Lyle and his team went and flew underneath Sydney Harbour Bridge. Any other time they'd have been court-martialed and cashiered and God knows what, but because it was VJ they got away with it. Alan Rye, once again, he looks after all the youth at the museum, and he does a wonderful job encouraging the kids, and they pull engines apart and put them back together again and do all those sort of things. But he's also a budding painter, and if you're going to the museum, as you come into the first hangar on the right hand side, all those paintings up on the wall are done by this old guy. Anyway, these two, or one of them, I forget which, I think it was Alan Rye, come up to me and said, Ken, would you like to go and see a model aircraft factory? And I thought, the last thing I want to go and see is a model aircraft factory. And my memories of models are making them out of balsa wood and tissue paper, and you put dope on them. And I can remember I had about a dozen of them hanging up from my bedroom ceiling, and I lived in a two-storey house. And I think the most exciting thing about it was I got pissed off one day. I set fire to them and let them glide out the window. That was my interest in these model aircraft. So anyway, we turn up at this joint. And as Brian said, I do the newsletter, so I do a lot of photography and God knows what. So because of these old guys, I thought, well, I better humour them along, so I'll go along with them. So we drive down to Bibra Lake, and I really thought it was going to be a model aircraft factory. When we get there, as soon as we get met by the managing director, and he looks at me and shakes hands, he says, oh, I'm glad to see you brought your camera, but just be careful what you take photographs of. Model aircraft factory? What's he on about? Don't take my photograph, don't do this, don't do that. I thought, no, obviously this is a bit more significant than I originally thought. And it turns out that the guy that is the managing director of the company is an ex-British SAS guy, which in itself, you know, it gives some reason why he doesn't want to have his photograph taken. So I specifically asked him after a while, what's the story? He said, I went across with 32 British SAS guys into Northern Ireland, and only 6 of us came back. So I didn't ask any more questions, and I thought, obviously he was into something that was a bit dubious. But anyway, we get into this factory, and there's all these model aircraft. I mean, we're talking about 20 metres, 20 feet wingspan of these things, monstrous great things, and I could soon tell that it wasn't an ordinary model place. This guy was state-of-the-art technology, the motors, the navigation system. As you can see from the numbers from this thing, 15 hours, I mean, you can see the size of it, there's next to nothing to it. Travel at 180 knots. It's got cameras, or eyes, it's got about 40 different eyes in the head of this thing, with range well in excess of 30 kilometres from 20,000 feet. It can read the number plate from that height. So all these emails we get sent around, we see these things over in Afghanistan and Iraq and whatnot, taking out these terrorists and whatnot. This is the sort of stuff that they're going to be using these days. Classified data, I mean, what I'm telling you now, you're not getting a sophisticated professional brief on UAVs. Sorry, in a way. I mean, they were just models to me, and the guys sprouting off the extent and the skills of the electronic equipment and the capabilities and whatnot. But it was just quite extraordinary. There was about 10, it's just Bibra Lake, so it's not far away. There's about 10 guys working there. There was one guy that was the model maker, and he literally did make the models up, and then the rest of the guys were all PhDs and professors and goodness knows what, highly qualified individuals. And I believe you're going to get one of the guys to come and talk to you next year, so you'll have the technical data. But as you can see, they're totally automated vehicles with pre-planned takeoff, navigation, video, surveillance and landing. So you sit there and you just stick them on the end of the runway. In fact, you can even control them you sit in front of a console and you can control them running down the runway. Well, not a runway, but just a clear spacious takeoff, and off they go. And of course, this, I mean, just as the young kids these days, you see them forever playing their games in front of the computer. Now, as they grow up, and the military guys, they're going to be sending these things over to these godforsaken areas, and no one's going to be next where they're doing all the damage and the killing and goodness knows what. But it was quite extraordinary, the sophistication of this equipment. Very lightweight, very high performance, and as you can see by the aspect ratio and the wingspan, etc., there's every reason why they should be able to stay in the air for such a long time. This is what really impressed me. Now this reminded me of the extractor fan over your stove, all right, or the one in your bathroom. And what they've done, they put 4 of them together, and then, I kid you not, we were sitting in front of a laptop like this in an office, in a factory room about as big as this, and it took off, say, over there, and it made as much noise as just the ceiling fan, okay? The 4 fans, they sort of coordinated. It can go up, down, sideways, whatever. We were literally in this office, okay? Just imagine we're behind the bar. The thing takes off, it went round the room, went out the door, went across to the next factory room. They obviously knew what was going on. It went in the doorway, it went up the hallway, the door was open, and a lass is on the computer, and it's behind the lass. She obviously knew this stuff was going on all the time. But it was absolutely unbelievable, the control this had. And there we are, behind the guys, it's got the controls on the TV screen in the office over the road. So what they're going to be using these stuff these days for is for actually finding the terrorists, finding all these unexploded bombs without actually putting themselves in the danger situation themselves. Those ones are the ones that are being made at Bibra Lake, but I managed to get some information on what in actual fact, the RAAF has got these things on lease. So this is one of the ones they've got. They've got 3 types. Looks quite large, but it's the same size as the ones before. They look quite monstrous, but and I think they cost something like $100,000. But you know, it doesn't put lives at risk. And the Israelis have got umpteen of these things airborne every day. Every square inch of Palestine is watched by these machines. So that's it. That was the cyber technology place just down the road. Top secret. Don't take photographs. And I went just because I went to model aircraft factory.